or self-referencing it, Jamie Kennedy does. Everybody's a suspect in the middle of the fucking video store and shit.
If they watch Prom Night, they'd save time.
Yeah,
that part, that whole scene is awesome. We get to the, apparently there was a run on the mass murder section. Everybody's renting horror movies for this. I mean, it's like Christmas. Everybody's fucking bunkering down, staying in, watching horror movies. There's a curfew. And, he's talking to Stu, and this is interesting because I think it's important later on after you've watched the movie to watch it again and you think about it a different way. But when he's talking to Stu, he's saying that Billy's the killer. And Stu is saying that he thinks it's his pops, or her pops. I mean, why can't they find her pops? And I have to tell you, one of the other things that I thought about when I'm watching this is just the fact that they're talking about this. I mean, this is real life. It's supposed to be real life, And they're just kind of I don't know. They're not taking it too seriously, that's for fucking sure.
Right.
That's kind of what the movie is, but I think this is why they were able to tell the MPAA that it was a comedy, So we get this interesting conversation between Stu and Randy. Stu says it's the dad. Randy says it's Randy basically says that it's Billy. Billy comes over, acts creepy as fuck, scares the shit out of Randy, and Randy tells him, it's the millennium, motives are incidental. So you get the idea again that maybe Billy is the killer, but I mean, how did he do it? How did he call Sidney? He was in jail. We'll get to that again later. All right, so now we're going to go to the party part, and this is where the part, where Stu has the party with all his friends there, and, they've rented a bunch of horror movies, and this scene apparently is the longest part of their entire, or this whole, party thing is took place for 41 days or something crazy, didn't it, Blake?
Yeah.
The filming of it?
Yeah, the filming of it is, I think it's one of the, they don't film these things in the order in which they appear. A lot of the times they'll film the lengthy part, or a part that requires a lot of extras, first to get the hard stuff out of the way. But yeah, there was a long time span, I'm sure, over this. But again, that's a Wes Craven special too, because I mean, look at some of the stuff in Nightmare. They filmed a lot of the revolving room with Tina's death and stuff first, or last actually. They filmed that scene last, and then it's edited in and put inwards first. So I think it just goes on time and budget, which this film had a decent budget. $14 million was the same budget, the same amount that he had for Wes Craven, and I think probably pretty close to what he had for Vampire in Brooklyn. For Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Vampire in Brooklyn, $14 million is pretty that's pretty decent for a Wes Craven, thing, considering, it only cost $1.8 million to make the first Nightmare, and took him, 10 years to get $14 million for a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, Gail, she decides she's gonna talk to Sidney, but Dewey actually intercepts her, and Gail sneaks a camera into the house where this party is taking place. And, this is where you kind of notice that Dewey and Gail kind of have a thing for each other. I mean, earlier they talked to each other. It was just a short little scene where Gail was basically trying to get info from Dewey, and he's stupid, so he's kind of giving her what he knew. And, again, still the dad disappeared. By the way, another subtle reference to the father is that the Ghostface costume that they show you that's at every five and dime in the state is Father Death. So it's just another little subtle reference that it could be the dad. Dewey and Gail, they go to this party, and Dewey's like, young man, you're too young to drink that. And he's like, I'm just kidding. Have a good time. And, there's underage drinking and shit, but he's not going to break it up. And Tatum's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, she's with me. Dewey's all excited. And so they go, and they just kind of walk around the house for a minute, and then they leave. But Tatum, she goes to the garage. And this is also one of the cooler scenes of the movie. Do you agree?
Absolutely, yes. the dialogue and the scene itself. Yep.
Yeah, it's just really fucking cool. And also, so Tatum, she goes in the garage. She's gonna go get beer for Stu. You know, she's like, "What am I, the beer wench?" By the way, there's a whole lot of things I'm leaving out, like the whole commentary on horror movies, Jamie Lee Curtis, all that bullshit. So anyway, Tatum goes down to the garage, and she's getting the beer. And then when she goes back to get back in, like the door's locked, and then she goes back to open the garage to get out that way, and the killer is standing there. And this is the first scene where we really just see the killer. Instead of him just popping out or lunging at someone, he's just standing there like, what the fuck, you know?
Yep.
Because of the way that he's there, like, Tatum doesn't take it seriously. Everybody thinks it's Randy every time. Have you noticed that? Like, she thinks this is Randy. Sydney thought it was Randy earlier. He loves horror movies. It would only make sense that Randy would, play a joke right like this, right?
Yeah, because it doesn't say lose the costume, Randy, or Sydney will freak if she sees it or some shit like that. Yeah.
What is this? I spit on your garage? And then she takes it serious when he grabs her by the arm and fucking slices her with that hunting knife on the arm. And, she takes off running. She grabs the beer bottle, starts chucking beers at her. And the stuntman's pretty awesome because he gets hit in the nuts and in the face. He gets his ass kicked. Like I said, Ghostface is a big goof. But, he's still threatening, obviously. So she goes and tries to take off, and she tries to get through the doggy door of this garage. And Ghostface just fucking turns on the garage, and then it raises up, and she can't get out because her tits are too big. By the way, this is where her tits are the hardest in the entire movie. Her nipples are, it was nipply that night. There actually people used to ask her if she was wearing like fake boobs or something to make it look that way. No, her nipples were just that hard. I used to love her. I used to love her when she'd go around with Marilyn Manson not wearing anything. It was awesome. Anyway, so she gets stuck in the garage, and he just turns it up, and as it raises up, it fucking snaps her neck, basically. This is another scene that was cut shorter by the MPAA, but it was kind of, even though it was slightly unrealistic, it was a really fucking cool scene. A really cool kill, too.
Yeah, because it also, touches the side of, it fucks up the side of her face, her head, in addition to the neck breaking thing. And it's just the way that she dangles, that is one of the most realistic looking depictions of a hanging death and a body suspended that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it was definitely fucking cool. So, then Billy pops up at the front door, and Stu's like, well, you guys can go upstairs with Sydney. You and Billy can go upstairs and talk, whatever. He's like, contact you, fuck rag, or whatever it was.
It's subtlety, Stu. You should look it up, Yeah.
Yeah, subtlety, Stu. Yeah, you're right. So, anyway, they go upstairs, and they're going to go fuck. We know it. And anyway, so Sydney, she goes upstairs with Billy, and she decides she's gonna fuck him. And we get some other lines from Billy here where he's like, "It's all just one big movie, Sid," which makes you say, maybe Billy is the killer watching the movie. You know what I mean? They fuck. Sydney, after they fuck, Sydney's like,
who'd you call?
So who'd you call? It's kind of weird that she fucks him and then asks him that question. Isn't that a little bit weird? I guess he fucks some sense into her. That's awesome.
I don't know. I can't speak to the weird shit people say, after sex and before sex, but during sex, I can't.
I'm gonna accuse my wife of being a murderer next time I get laid. It's gonna be awesome. Anyway.
Oh yeah, you killed our neighbor's dog, didn't you, whore? Oh.
Exactly. Got what I needed. Maybe that's what she was doing. I don't know. She was trying to tell him to get out in her own little way. So anyway, and he's like, he acts all threatening, and he's like, what is it that I have to do to prove to you that I'm not a killer? And she looks at him like, and the way she's looking at him, you think that she's looking at Billy like she realizes he's the killer, but there's actually something going on behind Billy. And when Billy turns around, he gets fucking stabbed repeatedly by Ghostface. So old Billy, I guess, is not the killer because he's fucking dead. There's blood all over his shirt. Billy falls over. Sydney gets the fuck out of there. Ghostface is after her. Sydney pretty much falls out a window, and onto a boat. And then once she gets off the boat, she sees Tatum hanging there in the garage. And by the way, this is about the last time we'll hear about Tatum for the entire series, except for like one time in maybe Scream 4 or something. Just a brief little moment. But good Lord, Tatum should have been a lot more important, but nobody gave a fuck about her.
Yeah, and you know, something else about the scene which Billy bites it, you know, is I think the timing was off because the way she looks at it, she's like, oh my God, but then her eyes, when they shoot back the camera to her, when they pan back to her eyes move, and then all of a sudden she looks behind him. So I think maybe what you were saying was true. She was thinking, he's fucking being weird, and then maybe he is, and then, oh shit, there is something behind him. But I think it was like a delay, the way it was filmed, because you see her looking at him that way, and then you also see her reaction when Ghostface approaches. And one of the coolest things in the movie is when the Ghostface stabs Billy the first time, the blood shoots out and like sprays on her face in 3 big dots. That was beautiful. It was awesome. That was really well done. Filmed very well.
And this is actually, is this the first time we see Ghostface wipe the knife?
Yes. This is the first time we see him pull his hand over the blade and wipe it off. That was an improv thing. That wasn't in the script. That was something the stuntman did, and they just fell in love with it and kept it in the movies. It
became a staple of Ghostface. I mean, you don't see other killers do that shit. And it's really fucking cool, too, I have to say. And I love it. So, so Sid runs off, and what the fuck? I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah, so Gail and Dewey had gone off to find Sid's father's car.
Those drunk kids, they find out, well, it's important to note at that point that Randy gets a phone call, I guess one of the school buddies or something, tells them that they found Principal Henry dead and he was hung up on the goalpost.
Yeah, everybody takes off. Everybody
they're drunk as shit. Yeah. And they about run Dewey over.
2 of those guys were the ones that were expelled, too, by the way. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but...
Yeah, when the one says, how many people dead, how many Hellraiser, the taller guy, jumps up and high-fives Randy during that, and then the other guy, like, is drinking, and when Stu says, I'll be right back, during the rules thing, you see the other guy on the couch, drunk as fuck. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyway, this is where... Dewey and Gail find the car. They go back to the house. They kind of split up at this point, and God, there's so much shit that goes on during all this. Like the fat cameraman, like Sid comes running up to the van. Cameraman gets his throat slit, but this is right after Randy's about to bite it, where he's like, "Behind you." And, it's a 30-second delay on this camera. So then when the cameraman turns around, he gets his fucking throat slit. Sid's still running from the killer, this whole thing. I love the scene where Sid gets into the cop car, and she's hiding in the cop car, and Ghostface is fucking with her. He's got the keys. He just angles them at her, and he starts popping the locks open. Did
you notice that the back hatchback opens up?
Slowly,
you see it in frame. And that's just, I don't think that was supposed to be in there because you see it because you don't see him get in it, but you see the thing open, and then all of a sudden
I think it's supposed to be creepy. I really do. Like, I remember watching it and seeming like it was obvious to me, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was effective either way. I don't know.
What about the other thing? Was the popping the locks? He popped the locks from under the car.
Yeah.
How the fuck
he was fucking with her. I don't know. Like, I think maybe he was reaching up and, you know what I mean? Who knows, though? This was clearly not like a remote.
There's some supernatural elements in this, I think.
It sure seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe implied, because obviously we know the killers are human. Obviously, it's not like Ghostface's. I mean, we know it's somebody. You know, we know it's not like a monster. It's some fucking asshole in a costume getting his rocks off by killing people. So I don't know if it just is supposed to have a little bit of that supernatural vibe to it or what, but that connects later on with the other movies too, you know.
Yeah, so all sorts of shit goes on. Like Dewey gets stabbed in the back, Gail gets in the news van, she swerves to avoid hitting Sid, who's looking for help, and runs the car down a hill, running into a fucking tree. It looks like she's dead at this point. So Dewey and Gale, you think, are dead at this point. And